Hello, everyone. Welcome to July edition of Logic Apps Live. So seems like the half of the year already is gone past. We have today Kent and Divya with us, and hopefully with some really interesting information for you. Divya, can you go to the agenda, please? So, as became kind of a tradition, we're going to be highlighting and celebrating our ISE Aviator of the month. Then we're going to be talking a little bit about some updates for the Logic Apps Community Day. A quick reminder, but an important reminder that ISE Retirement is coming really soon. Then Divya is going to be talking about a sneak peek on a really cool feature that we're working on, the templates. And Kent has some very good demos about generative AI and talk about sending business process tracking alerts. So with that, Divya, please go to the next one. The ACE Aviator of the month is Diogo Formosinho. He's from Portugal and is an integration developer at DevScope, right? So he's a friend of our good friend Sandro Pereira. One thing that is like really pop up on the interview that we did with Diego was the advice that he really wanted to get early was it's really crucial to view failure setbacks as learning opportunities rather than like the end, right? And a big tip for him is good documentation matters. So when I was reading his interview, I was saying that like in the beginning, I thought that like just knowing Logic Apps was great, but actually having good documentation helps me to keep my code in check and also to help me share that with others. So read the July edition, go to Logic Apps Aviator /July 24, and you can hear more about Diego. Thanks for being the ACE Aviator, mate. Next one is on the Logic Apps Community Day. Please save the date, September 26, which is going to be our September edition for Logic Apps Live. Instead of doing just a Logic Apps Live, we're going to have like a big event celebrating our community with community speakers. If you wanted to know more about all the sessions that we have lined up, you can go to aka.ms/Logic Apps Community Day. But in the meantime, if you can go to the next slide, Livia, we can show the sessions. And you can see that we have a really good number of speakers here and a big mix of the veterans like Matthias, Paco, Sandro, Mick, and like the new people that is starting to join the community. We have Sebastian that was our ACE Aviators a month or so ago, but we have Sabahat that is new to the to Logic Apps talking about Dataverse and FNO. We have Prashant, Agad, Cameron McKay, Igor, and Ankit, all of them new to to our community. So big thanks for everyone that sends sessions. I think we have like close to 40 sessions to select. So the selecting committee had a really hard time trying to get something like that. So with that, let's talk. Let me do a quick reminder that ICE Retirement date is 31st of August 2024, right? So after the August 31st, 2024, you may experience outages and service disruption. So the clock is ticking for you to complete that migration. If you wanted to know more about the migration, if you needed the resources to help you on the final stretch, you can go to aka.mx/export ICE to consumption, and you're going to find like how our export tool works to help you to do that. But if you wanted to see the end-to-end, and if you wanted to see how some of those components can actually automate, you have this video done by our fast track team with Nicholas McCallum, aka.ms/ISE FTA Learn Live. And if you go to that one, you're actually going to see the whole process in live, right, during this demo. So he did like a real live demo showing all the steps, all the things that you have to take consideration from exporting the workflows from ICE all the way to getting that ready to deploying in your production environment. So please work on that because the clock is ticking. And with that, all yours, Divya.
Thank you, Wagner. Hello, everyone. So today I want to talk about a new feature that we are in the last stages to release. So it is something that should be available sometime later next month. Uh, Templates is what we are bringing to Logic App Standard. For those who have used Logic Apps consumption, you probably have used templates with Logic Apps consumption as well. This is basically further extending or further improving upon that feature, and we will first bring it to Logic App Standard, but it will eventually be available for Logic Apps consumption as well. Uh, it is planned for public preview in August, later next month. I think for those who are new to the platform, the idea with templates is that you do not have to start building workflows from scratch. You can take advantage of these pre-built workflows to accelerate your development and eventually onboarding to the Logic Apps platform, thereby reducing your time to market. In terms of what we are targeting, we will, in this first release, support templates that are based upon single workflow. So, single workflow templates. And in terms of the scenarios and use cases, our goal is to basically cover all kinds of use cases, all kinds of industry patterns, so that you can very quickly use Logic Apps for your business needs. In the first round of the templates, you will see templates for design patterns such as how should you use try catch, how should you do error handling based on try catch patterns, how should you use service bus for patterns like sequential convoy. We will have templates for AI scenarios. We will have templates for B2B and EDI scenarios, as well as mainframe modernization and more. So the idea is that we want to start with a set of templates, and of course, like, we will keep adding to this collection of templates over a period of time. Uh, so today, I do want to quickly show you what this feature would look like when it becomes available in the next couple of weeks. So let me just jump to the. So what I'm showing you right now here are wireframes, but this is how you can expect the feature to work when we release it soon. So here what I have is basically a template library. So when you create a new workflow for Logic App Standard, you will you would be able to create an empty workflow like you do today, or you could start with one of these pre-existing templates. Uh, these will be organized as a flat list, but eventually in our roadmap we do have plans to support templates that will have multiple workflows. So you can think of scenarios where you do need multiple workflows, right? For example, for a service bus publisher subscriber pattern, you need a publisher workflow and a subscriber workflow. Or for data synchronization between two systems, you will need a template that sends the data, other one that receives the data, and many more. So there will be many scenarios where we see the need for multiple workflows in that package, but to begin with, we will have single workflows. So eventually when we have it, then all of that will be organized here by these tabs, where you will have workflows representing a single workflow template, accelerators representing a multi-workflow templates. And then we also have plans where you would be able to publish your own templates that you can leverage within the scope of your organization, and those will come under this shared with me option. Just a disclaimer that these are wireframes, so some of the naming and some specific details in terms of labeling wording can change, but the idea is that you can get the concept and the end-to-end experience with these wireframes. Again, we will provide several mechanisms for you to basically browse and filter through this gallery by the support of these filters, as well as look at them in any way you want. There will be a free text search as well, where you can simply type in what you're looking for and you should be able to filter the results based on that. For a tile here, what you will see is a short is a title for what that template does, who the publisher is, whether it's a single workflow or a template or a multiple workflow, as well as the kind of trigger it uses, whether it's based on a request trigger or a schedule based trigger or an event that are being used in that template. Now, when you click on any of these templates, it will open the intent of the template. So there will be a detailed description about the template. And then in the overview tab, you'll be able to see the connectors it uses and for which of them you already have connection in this app. And in some cases, some of the templates may have some prerequisites that you need to take care of in order to successfully use that template. Those will be those will come into the prerequisite section here, along with some other details. So this information should allow you to decide whether you want to move ahead and use the template or close it and go back to the gallery and search for something else. If you decide to move ahead, you do a create a workflow with this template. That opens this wizard, which will guide you through the steps that you need in terms of configuration of the template so that it is ready for you to use. So the first step is to set up the connections. And here you will see the list of connections that that template needs, the connections you already have, and the ones you do not have, you can configure those connections from here. So here, for example, in this case, I do not have an OpenAI connector connection. So I'm going through the process to create that connection by selecting the type of authentication, providing the name of the connection, endpoint URL, key, etc. Once we provide this information, the connection, and when the connection is created successfully, then we move on to the next step. The templates in many cases will use parameters because we want to create these in a generic ways such that you can use specific parameters based on your resources and your organization. So in this case, for an OpenAI connector as well as AI search connector, what you need to provide is a deployment identifier as well as an index name. So those are the fields you would have to enter. And then you can move on to the next step where you provide the name of the workflow as well as the type of the workflow, whether you want to use it as a stateful or a stateless workflow. And finally, you can just review all the information you've provided. If you want to change anything, you go back, and if you're happy with it, you simply do create. And this will then take you to Designer, where the same workflow that you decided to use is now opened in Designer, and then you're ready to use it. You can save it and run it, or you can make more changes if needed. So that's the end-to-end experience in terms of how you as a consumer of the templates can go about and use them. If you, as a publisher for the template, just other data point that I want to share is that these templates are all published in open source repo in GitHub, which means that any of you can also contribute to the collection of these templates. And the idea here is that we want to empower everyone to be able to participate in this process, as well as if you have any specific need, you can help yourselves as well as help the community and other customers as well. So here, as you can already see, that we as a team are already adding a couple of templates here, and we'll keep on adding to the collection here as we go along. So going back to the PowerPoint for one more time. So definitely would recommend you to check out this feature when we release it, and the collection of templates we have there. If you do not see a template, if you need a specific template and you do not see it there are a couple of ways we can go about it. The first one, which I recommend, is that you can publish your own templates at the GitHub repo that I was just showing you. Before we release the feature, we will be sharing detailed instructions on how to generate these templates. It's a simple process. Once you have your workflow, you can, with some simple steps, you can create these templates. So that is definitely a recommended path I would suggest. But if you are not able to do that, I would definitely recommend you to share the list of templates that you need for us. That would help us in prioritization, because if we see that there are multiple customers who need a specific, who have a need for template for specific use cases, then we can definitely prioritize those from our end as well. So the second URL here is a form which I would highly recommend you to fill. One, if you have a need for a specific template, and even if you don't have a need for a specific template, but based on what I showed you today in terms of the experience, if there is anything that you want to share with us in terms of feedback, in terms of any features or gaps that you notice, we would love to hear from you. So feel free to use the second link here for any feedback, as well as for your needs on what kind of templates you would like to use. So yeah, that's all I had to share with you all. So please keep a watch for this feature as it comes out late next month. Thank you. Back
Divya, we have one question from Mark Abrams. So Mark is asking, will there be a similar experience for VS Code, since we prefer to develop our workflows in VS Code?
Not right away. So in terms of our priority, we are focusing on single workflow templates. After that, we want to bring in the support for multiple workflow templates, and then the ability to publish your own templates. This is what is planned for us. VS Code is something that is in our roadmap, but I don't think it will come like very, very soon. It is something that we are looking at, though.
Okay, so the to make sure that that is not something that impacts that much, we're still going to have that ability to bring workflows that you create originally in the portal to VS Code to continue the experience there, which is something that you're going to be probably doing a sneak peek next month. So maybe those two together can close that initial gap until we bring all of that natively for VS Code.
I think that's a great point, Wagner, because that way, like nobody's blocked, right? You start with Portal, but then you are very soon into VS Code with all the artifacts that you need for development. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So Mark, wait for a sneak peek of that probably in the next month's session. We're working to streamline that process of bringing things from the portal to local, so you can continue development there. Kent, all yours. Thanks, Divya. Great session.
All right. So what I wanted to do now was just to show a demo of how you can go ahead and use Azure Logic Apps and Azure Integration Services building generative AI applications. And so for those of you that were at Integrate, this demo might be repetitive for you, but you know, there's a lot of people that haven't had the opportunity to see this just yet. And so one of the questions I received a fair bit in London when it comes to generative AI. And, you know, I think that there's this misconception that in order to use generative AI, that you need to build like a brand new application, and that AI needs to be the center of that application. But I think with integration, the narrative is, so consider the data that moves through your landscape today. You may have data related to purchase orders, inventory, work orders, financial statements, customer service, tickets, and much, much more. And this data intrinsically has some value to your or chosen to share this information with other systems. And so the question really becomes, how do you gain insights across all of this data, but without needing to execute on large ETL or ELT programs? I think we've all been there. We integrate a bunch of systems. Now we need to be able to reason over the data. So we do a lot of extraction from those systems, try to consolidate it in some sort of data warehouse or data lake, and then build reports on top of it. And I would say part of the challenge with that is it's very rigid generally, because everything has to sort of format and funnel into a common format so that you can have predictability in order to build experiences on top of it. And I think that's where I think there's some opportunities to explore here. You know, sometimes there's this perception of middleware, you know, integration technology that sits in the middle of these systems as being overly complex and kind of gets in the way. And it's one of those things where having an iPaaS or middleware actually is quite advantageous in this particular scenario. So if you think about how your iPaaS is directing traffic and routing information, naturally, this is quite valuable information that you do have. And what if you had the opportunity to consolidate it all and then reason on top of it? And I think that's really what we can go ahead and do when we think about the retrieval augmented generation, what's known as the RAG pattern. And so you might have seen a little bit of this before on this channel where we've talked about the connectors, but I felt it was sort of worth revisiting just because this is a, you know, such a hot area in the RAG pattern. The first is around ingesting data and then being able to structure that data through tokenization, embeddings, and creating indexes. And that's basically how you sort of set up your data so that it can be leveraged from an LLM. Now, on the second stream, we have the retrieval, and that all starts with a prompt. So basically an utterance or a statement, a query that is provided in natural language that is used to then go ahead and search for this information and be able to respond back to you. And you can see here along the way, we've got these different connectors and operations that are being used to go ahead and solve these particular from this perspective here. In the middle, we've got this is an Azure sample, this is an Azure repo, and it represents a library of code and scripts that allow you to go ahead and implement this RAG pattern. Then on the right-hand side here, we have what this looks like from a Logic Apps perspective. So the alternative to thousands of lines of code that needs to be sort of built and configured and wired up is that we can accomplish the same objective using a series of actions, built-in actions to Logic Apps standard. And the value prop here is very similar to why you use Logic Apps to begin with. Logic Apps provides a lower barrier of entry to go ahead and integrate systems in a consistent and common manner. And you can look at this the very same way when we think about generative AI and using these connectors. There's obviously multiple ways to solve this problem, but we're giving customers the ability to go ahead and do this through these built-in connectors. And so this is where I wanted to spend a few minutes just showing a particular demo. And yeah, so this demo is related to customer service and inspired by a customer use case in the utility sector, where a customer will go ahead and expose a chatbot that allows customers to report customer service tickets, for example, a power outage ticket. And as we go ahead and build out this entire solution, there's a series of handoffs that have to take place between the CRM system, the work order management system, a safety management system, a marketing system. And then at the end here, we've got the LLM. And so the purpose here, and sort of the reason why I've chosen this particular demo is that this solution I had previously built. I actually had built this a year ago. And what the opportunity now is that using publish subscribe messaging, I can now go ahead and make this data available to the LLM. And so this is one of those situations where I don't have to create this brand new project, look for a lot of funding to go ahead and do this. It's more of something that complements an existing solution. And this is where there's an advantage to having iPaaS and Logic Apps in the middle that's orchestrating all of these different interactions across these different systems. Now, what also sort of lends itself to this is business process tracking. And so when we talk about alerts, I'm also going to be leveraging this particular demo from that perspective. So let me just jump out here and bring up another screen. And so what we're going to do is we're going to run through this particular scenario. And then at the end, what we're going to be able to go ahead and do is query the, basically our large language model and actually be able to develop some insights that is collected across this particular business process. So I'm in, what used to be known as Power Virtual Agents. It's now called Copilot Studio. And I've got a chatbot here, and I'm just going to walk up to the chatbot, say hi. And then indicate that I have a power outage. Okay, so it's just confirming that. And then now I'm being asked to go ahead and provide basically my email address for my particular account. In this case, I would be a customer of City Power and Light. So I'm going to go ahead and provide a fictitious email address here. Hopefully I got that right. Okay, now I'm being asked, is this my site ID, basically the location of my where I'm reporting the issue? And then I'm being asked for some additional details about what may have contributed to this power outage. And in this case, I'm going to say that there was a big storm. And the power was knocked out. So behind the scenes, what's going on here is the chatbot's going to create a case inside of the CRM. And then from there, what's going to happen is in the work order management system, a work order is being created. And this is through the power of integration and Logic Apps. And now what we need to do from a dispatcher perspective is we need to assign this work order to a field technician. So what I'm going to do is just going to use a Power App to go ahead and represent this. And so right now I'm a dispatcher. We've got a case 1193 here. And I'm just going to go ahead and dispatch this to a particular technician. Oops. 1 second here. And at this point, we've now assigned this technician to this work order. So the technician in this case is Bob. And once Bob reaches the site, he needs to check in and also do an initial safety assessment. And in this case, Bob's going to say that the surface area is slippery. Due to the rain. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and save that. Now, in the meantime, what's going on behind the scenes is this work order management system is being integrated with the CRM, and we're providing updates to that particular CRM incident or that case with the latest, so that a customer could go do a ticket lookup in the chatbot and see what is the latest information on their issue or incident. Now, unfortunately, Bob has slipped here. And so now what we do need to do is we do need to report a safety incident. And that's going to create another flag in the system that will actually drive that business process alerting demo. So that's why there's some significance there. So Bob's had a colleague come along and sort of fix the issue. There was a relay that needed to be replaced and provide a material ID for that. And in this case, we've now got the customer's power has now been restored. So that has completed the business process from that perspective. And now what we can actually go ahead and do is take a look at the business process in business process tracking here. And we'll just do a refresh. And in this case, we've got the case number here, 1193, and we can see that it has actually been processed. Now, if we go ahead and expand the filter here, so let's go back into May. We can see we've got a lot of different tickets, right? Some of these are successful, some of these are failed, and it's failed from a business perspective, not from a technical perspective, but we've got a lot of different data here. So the question becomes, okay, great. How do I now start to reason on top of this data? And that's where the RAG pattern really comes into place here. Because what I've been doing along the way here is I've been going and extracting key information and then making it available to my LLM so that my LLM can go ahead and also leverage it as well. Sorry, here I didn't have this up here. And so there's two workflows, and there was a link in the slides, and we can make sure that that link is available. There's a GitHub repo available that you can go ahead and clone and get started with these particular workflows. We really take care of sort of it's not really a heavy lift, but we take care of getting you started here. And what you can do is you can tweak those examples quite simply to go ahead and sort of accommodate it for your specific use case. In the example in GitHub, what we're leveraging is like a PDF document. So you pass in a location to a PDF document that gets ingested. But here it's a little different. What I want to do is I want to be able to ingest messages from my existing solution. So when I've got a work order complete event, I put a message on a queue. And then what I've got in this particular workflow is I'm able to dequeue that information and then perform the following steps, like tokenizing the document, getting the embeddings, indexing the document, etc. So as these work orders are being completed, I'm enriching the solution with all of this particular information. Now, the next piece to this is, hey, how do we go ahead and search for this particular data? Now, in this case, I really didn't modify the sample workflow much. All I did was change sort of the system message to include that this is City Power and Light chatbot. We're talking about power outages, and then provided some additional information for the system message and query from that perspective. So this largely, some minor tweaks are required from that perspective. So if we head over to Postman, I've got a few different sort of scenarios set up here. And so I can now call this workflow that I just showed you and say, do we have any safety incidents where the safety assessment includes slippery conditions or slip and falls? And then please provide 5 recent case numbers and details. And so we can go ahead and execute on this. And then we're going to get a response back. Obviously, we could do some additional formatting and things like that from that perspective. But this is sort of just the POC here. But we have our case that we just talked about, 1193, right? So I always like to show this in conjunction with business process tracking because it allows us to sort of validate what we're seeing here, so people don't feel that there's hallucinations that are going on, right? So 1193 was the ticket, and sure enough, we had a surface area slippery due to the rain, and someone had slipped and hurt their back. So that's kind of interesting. If we wanted to go and do customers, so let's go ahead and ask for, hey, are there any sort of incidents in Redmond where the city is Redmond, and we should get some different responses here as well for that. And if we go ahead and grab, say, case 1188, and we head over to business process tracking, and we go to 1188, and we come up here and we look at the customer details, we should see that, let's see that the city is Redmond. And then I think there's another scenario here where it's like, hey, show me cases where Bob was the field technician, and we'll get some information about the cases here as well. And so what's interesting about this is I haven't gone ahead and done any specific training. Like what we've got is a general purpose large language model and we're using Azure Open API service behind the scenes. That's all covered in that GitHub repo document. And all I've now started to do is like make this data available, and it's indexed, and it's tokenized, etc. And it's made available that we can now start to query on top of this. And so what's interesting here is we've talked about customers, we've talked about safety, we've talked about the technician, but we haven't done any specific training to this either. And so this just goes and shows the power of this technology, where it's very sort of ad hoc, and it doesn't require a lot of structure to be built in order to drive some value from that perspective. Now, the other piece, because we are using a general model here, we can also ask for like just general recommendations on how to reduce incidents when visiting customer locations, right? And this is going to pull data from the general model itself. Like this isn't anything that I've gone ahead and trained it. So it's kind of this combination of like general purpose model, general purpose data, and then enriching it with my corporate data. And this is something where it's your data. This is not something that is, like shared with other customers or anything like that. You've got assurances from that perspective. So that's the demo. But I think the key message here is that, don't feel like you have to sort of come up with this, new sort of mega solution and, build something expensive and fancy. I would go ahead and I would start to look at your existing interface catalogs. And I would start to look at what is the purpose of those interfaces, and then start to look for, hey, how can I derive value from across those different interfaces where they may start to intersect? Because as you start to mix more and more of these different systems in the solution, the ability to reason across them becomes even more difficult. And I think that's really the opportunity. And I would really suggest that people do go ahead and explore that in their organization. So this was something that was announced, I guess it was just last month, but worth highlighting. And that's the general availability of the Azure OpenAI and Azure AI Search connectors. And so these are GA. You can go ahead and use them, take your applications to production. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you as well. If you've got any use cases, whether just envisioned use cases or actual use cases deployed, please reach out. We'd love to talk to you and learn more about your particular use cases. All right, so now shifting gears a little bit to business process tracking. So at Integrate as well, we did announce some updates to business process tracking. And you can see here, one of the sort of the big sort of investments was support for business process stage status. So we've got successful and we've got failed. And we saw that in the demo before. Now, with these stage statuses, they can be obviously successful for good reason, but they can also be failed for a technical reason or a business process reason. You as the implementer have full control over that. You have the ability to choose under what conditions would I consider this to be failed. And as a result, it gets flagged and omitted in this particular manner. And so now you can start to see it. So the next sort of question is like, okay, great. Now we can differentiate between successful status and failed status, but I don't want to have to, hit F5 all the time to figure out, hey, I've got something that's failed. How can something get pushed to me instead? And so what we've done here is, we're using our own tools to go ahead and solve this problem. And so I've got a workflow here that I'm going to show you. And this is also something that's going to be part of the templates gallery that Divya was just talking about. And this is going to allow you to go ahead and get started and sort of construct a custom alerting mechanism for yourself. Now, we do use Azure Data Explorer, and we think that that's a good solution for customers. And part of the reason for that is it's highly reliable, it's highly scalable, and the other thing is it allows you to bring your own instance, which means the data is yours. And with the data being yours, you have complete access to that data. Now, when you have complete access to that data, that creates many different extensibility options, including building dashboards. And so this is something on my to-do list. So you'll see this in a future event where I show like Power BI dashboards or Azure Monitor Workbook dashboards that connect to this business process tracking data. But right for now, what I'm showing is a workflow that can go ahead and use basically the Kusto connector that will allow you to go ahead and query your ADX instance. Now, with this being like a connector-based approach, it really gives you a lot of flexibility. So if you want to be able to integrate with ITSM tools, like IT service management tools like ServiceNow, you can now go ahead and do that. If you want to orchestrate this with a third-party ITSM tool, you're welcome to do that. If you want to push this to a SharePoint list, you can go do that. If you want to, push this information to Teams or email, you can also do that. Because we've got a large library of connectors, basically the possibilities are rather endless. Now, I'm going to show you failures, but it also doesn't have to be failures. This could also be related to business process SLA monitoring. Because you've got the KQL connector, the Kusto connector, you can really construct whatever query you would like to see here and basically respond to that when something is out of bounds. And I think that's kind of the core opportunity here. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this workflow looks like. Now, this is going to probably look familiar for a lot of people that have sort of built these types of solutions before. What I've got here is a recurrence trigger. Now, for the purpose of demo, I've got this to run every 2 minutes. Maybe you don't need that frequently. Leave that up to you. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is get the timestamp of the last time that this workflow basically ran, because I want to go ahead and look for any new alerts. I don't want to go ahead and have duplicate alerts. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And that's just an Azure table storage query. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is just construct a query. Now, I've used a lot of parameters here, and that's so that when we use this in the templates, you can just do kind of a replacement, and you shouldn't even really have to touch this particular workflow. And all we're going to do here is run a query looking for any events where the event status is failure and the timestamp is greater than the last time this ran. We'll then go ahead and execute this query. We'll go ahead and parse the results so that we've got a typed, basically a typed response. We're going to check to see if there's any rows, because if there's no rows returned, that means we don't have any new failures. That means there's no point in communicating that with anyone. And if there are rows, then what we're going to go ahead and do is compose another query, because we're going to get more details as a result. Basically, we're going to say, hey, this was the stage that failed, but also in relation to that particular transaction, show me all of the other stages that were part of that business process. So we're going to basically go do a subsequent query to get the remaining details. And then I've decided to use the data mapper here just to sort of shape this response. We have a fairly big response coming from Kusto. We have a lot of details that are included. When I want to post something to Teams, I don't need anything that's sort of complicated. I'm going to then use the output and then basically pass that to an HTML, create HTML action. And then I'm going to go ahead and post this into Teams. And so in this case, I'll grab the name of the business process, the ticket number, the stage name, the timestamp, and some information about the logic app. So what was the logic app and the workflow that processed this particular event? And then more specifically, one was the run instance ID. So if I want to go to run history, I can go ahead and search for that particular value and further troubleshoot if I wanted to go further investigate. And then the other thing is I'm going to go ahead and just basically give all of the remaining details. And that was as a result of this particular query. So I'm going to now just pull up my Teams here. And this was the message that was just sent during the demo, like 14 minutes ago when I was running the demo. And what triggered this was the fact that we had a safety incident. And as a result, that stage status was flipped to failed or failure. And then we can see some additional details here. So we've got the logic app that sort of processed this. We've got the specific workflow. And then we also have the run instance ID as well. Some additional information of properties that were collected, right? We've got the safety assessment and the ticket number. And then here, what we can do is sequentially look at all of the stages that were part of that business process. And then here we can go ahead and figure out that this was the failure one. So if there was any sort of dependencies, we would be able to go ahead and to figure that out as well. So obviously this is going to be a template. You're going to be able to sort of tweak this and sort of tailor it to exactly your needs. But this should get you a good start from that perspective. And then if you did need to do additional, additional exploration here, as I mentioned before, you would have the logic app. Oh, hold on here. And here we've got the logic app that was referenced there. We've got the workflows, and this was the work order completed. And then if we needed to go ahead and search, we would have the ability to go ahead and do that. And then we'll go ahead and see the exact workflow and see exactly like where this had failed, and then be able to go ahead and further explore this if we wanted to. Now, I think there's some future opportunities around like how do we go ahead and provide a deep link so that you can go there directly. That's something on our radar as well. So yeah, that was the demo that wanted to share that with y'all. And yeah, if you have any feedback, we'd certainly love to hear about it. And I guess if folks have any other questions, happy to take those questions on now.
No questions on the chat, Kent.
Okay.
So I think with that is probably the end of today's show. Hopefully that everyone enjoying what we had today, and we come back next month around the same time, fourth Thursday of the month at 11 a.m. Pacific. So see you all later, and thanks for joining. Thanks for joining as well, Divya. It was quite good. See you.
See you. Bye.
Bye-bye.